إن الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه وعليه نتوكل ونتوب إليه ونعوذ به من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله ختم الأنبياء وإمام المرسلين إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. This verse we often hear at the beginning of the khutbah, where Allah Ta'ala has commanded the Prophet ﷺ to speak to the believers, to people who accept the message, or people who are of faith and are receptive to the message of Islam. He says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, people of faith, right? Don't die except as a Muslim. La tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun, right? The issue with this, we listen to it, and I have repeated this many, many times in my classes and khutbah and whatnot, right? There's one thing to hear the Quran. It's another thing to play it in the background. And it's a whole nother thing to feel that Allah is speaking to you personally, right? It's a whole other thing to feel that this message is for me, and therefore I have some measure of accountability to it. And of course, one of the first steps of really feeling that Allah is talking to you, have a relationship with His book. Read it. Read a page, right? In the morning when you're preparing, read a page. Don't listen, right? This isn't a fatwa against listening, right? But it's more of an encouragement to engage the Quran directly, not passively. Because when you have it in the background and you have it in the car, alhamdulillah, that's all nice. But you must understand that is not the same as a direct engagement of the Book of Allah. And to be quite honest, it might be something that's best taken in small doses. So read 3 or 4 ayat, right? There's a narration in which some of the companions, may Allah be pleased with all of them, said that, some of them, who were not all hafad of Quran, by the way, they would take it in like 5 ayat, right, at a time, and then contemplate, how does this speak to me? What is my obligation towards it? And what about me do I need to transform to conform to it? So they had a very active engagement of the book. And I want to speak today particularly about how we can try to realize the genius of Islam, not through just individual works, which is kind of where we're at now as a community. And I'll make myself hopefully clearer as we go. But really through developing a community over which the genius of each and every one of us can be brought out, can contribute, right? This should not be a community of imams, or a community of scholars, or a community of, yes, imams have their role to play, scholars have their role to play, but there's so many other things that need to get done. I spent this week, actually, Wednesday, I had gone into Los Angeles and drove around the area known as Skid Row. And as many of you may have heard, we have like a homeless epidemic here in California. It's a humanitarian crisis that you can go for block upon block and mile upon mile of seething hordes of people suffering from mental health degradation, from every other form, just living is unbelievable. You go there and you see this, and you cannot imagine that you are in the United States of America, that there could be what some people call third world poverty literally a 45-minute drive from my house. How do we deal with this? Well, I can tell you right now, I'm just an imam. I try to give a decent khutbah every once in a while. I lead salah. I make a pretty good, chili. I have some things I do pretty good. Solving humanitarian crises is not necessarily one of my, it's not what I was hired to do. Let's put it that way. It's not what I put at the top of my CV. I would like myself to find my place in how to work at fixing these problems. So my point is that where is the genius in our community? Somewhere in our community is a sister, is a brother, or maybe some sisters and some brothers that know how to deal with humanitarian crises, right? Maybe that's what they know how to do, but they're currently sitting in the back, sitting on the sideline, thinking I'm just at any moment going to get out my red cape and fly around and take care of everything. And I'm reminded of something. There's a very famous musician, his name is Brian Eno, and he was being interviewed about creativity and genius. And he said, all too often, genius is expressed through an individual, but it is cultivated and is generated in a community. No genius comes about except that they come from a community that breeds and develops that genius in some way. We need to think about this, because the Prophet ﷺ, this may turn some people on their heads, but the Prophet ﷺ was not a genius. فَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْحَوَىٰ. Right? He didn't speak of his own individual things. He was guided by Allah. He was protected from making errors and mistakes. He was told to do things. In fact, we all know of the Battle of Tabuk. For all of us that champion the idea of Quran and Sunnah, Quran and Sunnah. Quran and Sunnah is extremely important, and I am all for Quran and Sunnah. But the Battle of Tabuk was not won by either revelation or the Sunnah. It was won by the suggestion of one of his companions that asked him, Ya Rasulullah, this plan you have, is this Allah giving you the plan, or is this just you as a man? Because if it's Allah saying, then it doesn't really matter. As I said last week, we can throw out all, it doesn't really matter. If Allah has said to do it, then we don't need instructions. We just listen and obey. But he said, no, this is just what I think we should do. He said, well, if a God ain't talking, well, I have another plan that might actually keep us alive. And, in some ways, none of us would even be here today if that battle had been lost. Because they were trying to annihilate the Muslims, right? So Islam perpetuated through what? The contribution of a person that had something really significant, who was, he wasn't sheikh. As a matter of fact, there were no shuyukh at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. There wasn't a need for one. There was no need for anybody to interpret because he was alive. You just go and ask the messenger. But after his death, alayhi salatu wasalam, we have to, and we've seen throughout history, right? This is the problem of history for us. We look at history through this romantic lens. And yes, there have been amazing things that the Muslims have done throughout history. Medicine, law, art, poetry, ethics, every aspect of human life, the Muslims have had genius come forth and have contributed to it. They have either innovated it or they have taken it from somebody else and put a new spin on it. But I want to talk today, how does that mechanic come about? What is the secret to getting that back in our community versus just having this kind of romantic lament about history about once upon a time we were great, but now, What was that? So I'm going to relate a passage in the Quran for us to contemplate. And Allah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, this is from Surah Al-Baqarah. فَأَمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُمْ مِنِّي هُدًى فَمَنْ تَبِعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Allah Ta'ala says in this particular verse, and He's talking about Bani Israel and some of the trials, which again, the stories of Bani Israel in the Quran are not about Allah hating Jews. They were the Muslims a long time ago, and therefore the same trials and tribulations they go through, the same struggles, the same mistakes, the same sins. We have to look at that and say, am I doing the same thing? So Allah Ta'ala says, and when, without a doubt, right, this is actually right after Adam is expelled from paradise, when our guidance comes to you, undoubtedly, فَمَنْ تَبِعَ هُدَايَ, for the one that follows my guidance, right? Allah Ta'ala says what? فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Then there will be no fear upon them and they have no need to be nervous. This is one of the areas that is really crippling the genius of the Muslim community to develop, is that we are so concerned about what everybody else thinks about us that we don't pay any attention, not only to the Book of Allah, but even to ourselves, to help cultivate a thriving community of where all talents can be brought out and put at service to the Muslims, and then as a platform to the rest of humanity. One of the biggest mistakes that I see that we make is that, by and large, our relationship with the dominant culture here in America is we presume they already know how to do everything. America, the land of where they've already figured it out. And everybody else has to come on board with this version of civilization that the West has created. Well, as we saw last week, Brother Stefan was once again another black man murdered by the police, and now we have another brother who's also not only African American, but also a Muslim, murdered by the police now in South Carolina, and another brother up in the Bay, and the list goes on and on. So how can you sit here and blindly follow these people and the civilization that they espouse under the pretenses they have it all figured out? They haven't even figured out how to stop killing a segment of their population that poses them no threat, and that has been powerless since the day that they brought them here in chains. And we think these people got it all figured out. All we gotta come is just be like Chuck, be like Mike, be like them, follow them, imitate them, and everything will be okay. But then we get a little ruffled when we get searched at the airport. We get a little ruffled when in every masjid there's two representatives from the FBI. Welcome. We get a little ruffled about these things, and we never take the moment to step back and go, you know what? Yeah, they have done some good things, undoubtedly, right? You travel around the world, just look at the plumbing some places got. They have definitely done some good things here in America. I like plumbing, right? But that doesn't mean they have got the morality and the ethics all figured out. And that's what I am most concerned about our community, is that we have surrendered the creative process to just simply consumption. We are fit and we are satisfied with just consuming whatever is produced here. And now I'm thinking like, maybe I would A, do something different, or maybe B, I would take that, but I would spin it in my own way and then give it back as a way of contributing. This will not come about unless we get rid of this fear and anxiety about what other people think of us. That doesn't mean we have to become, religious jerks or zealots or whatever it is. No, you can do this with a sense of, compassion, manners. You can even do it with some swag. You can do all these things. But this country that you are living in and enjoying so many things of, and let me tell you, it hasn't got it all figured out. And there are some particular things within the deen of Islam that can really, really help. I mean, think about it. The most technologically advanced country on the face of the earth, the most powerful military, the most robust economy, can't figure out how to stop shooting unarmed black men in the street. And you want to follow them unabashedly and uncritically. Maybe they need our help to figure out how to stop oppressing people. The Prophet ﷺ said what? Help your brother. Help your brother. He didn't say Muslim brother, he said help your brother. If he does what? Whether he oppresses people or he's being oppressed. And the companion said, okay, we can understand how to help an oppressed person. But help the oppressor? Yes, help him to stop oppressing. That means we have to get out of the lackadaisical attitude that we're just here to sit back and consume and reap benefit and not contribute. How can the most powerful military, robust economy, technologically advanced society on the face of the earth, in maybe human history, not how to figure out how to have 2 million homeless people roaming around Southern California? And you still think they got it all figured out. We need to return to a reading of this book that gets us to think critically about ourselves. Who am I? What do I do? As Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Who is your daddy and what does he do, right? Think about critically. Who are you? What do you do? Are you here just to reap benefit? And here, I'm not asking for each and every one of you to become the solver of humanitarian crisis. No, we need to find somebody in our community that has this talent. We need to find our Salman al-Farisi, and then we need to support him or her. And we need to sometimes it's just a matter of write checks and get out the way. We need to find them. We need to let them know, come forth. Come out of the shadows. Come out of the back. Come out of the partition. We need you, because we don't have the answer. You have the talent. Let us support you. This is a very different attitude. This is a very, very different attitude. And if we look at the seerah, if we look at the biography of the Prophet ﷺ, we will see many times throughout the period of revelation, the Prophet ﷺ entrusted certain companions to very, very important missions and things, right? He didn't do it all himself. Even with the isma, even with the protection from committing errors and whatnot from Allah, he still had to delegate and let certain people do certain things. We need to return to the spirit. And again, where Allah Ta'ala says to Bani Adam, Ya Bani Adam, Ya Bani Israel, اذكروا نعمتي التي أنت عليكم. Bani Israel, remember the favor that I conferred upon you. Do we really here living in America recognize daily the blessing that we have? Do our children understand the blessing that they have of not growing up and having their government drop bombs on them? So whatever grievances we might have with the United States, whatever criticisms we might indeed legitimately have of their foreign policy, at the same time, we're not having bombs dropped on us. That doesn't mean we say, okay, everything is fine, but we have to have a certain kind of sweet spot engagement of not being just complacent, but at the same time, not forgetting about the blessings that we have. Which of the multiple favors of your Lord will you deny? Right? How can we sit comfortably knowing that a segment of our community, when they leave out of the safe space of this masjid, when they go out in the street, just go in the store to get a jug of milk, or dare say if they have a mental health episode, like our brother Sahid, that 9 times out of 10, there will be no negotiation for them. There will be no talking down. They will not be like Dylan Roof, who will walk into a church and blow away 9 people and go to Burger King and get it his way. We need to get back to a spirit of genius, contribute to this country, because we do not want to be that tale, that story of when the angels waited to bring the punishment until the final last believer had capitulated and then razed it to the ground, destroyed, right? We always think it's going to be like a Michael Bay film, like things, explosions. It might be something actually much more subtle, because Allah is al-Latif. Let's get back to developing this. We need to, encourage our children to participate, to let them know that, that guy out there talking with the big beard and the bald head, He ain't got all the answers for everything we need. We need you one day to replace us. Our children we need to teach them, hey, one day I'm not going to be here. One day I'm going to be feeding the worms. And while I'm busy feeding the worms, I need you to be busy feeding the poor people. So let us think about how we can develop this spirit. Read the book. Let's start with reading this book and not reading it like poetry, not reading it like entertainment. How does this make me responsible? How does this make me culpable? And what parts of me do I need to transform? أقول قولي هذا أستغفر لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا استغفر الله استغفر الله استغفر الله. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. So to end, there's so much to read here. And this passage is actually from the 38th ayah to the 44th or 45th in Surah Al-Baqarah. Read it this afternoon. It's not long. I'll read this last passage from it and then we'll end. Well, Allah Ta'ala says what? آمنوا وآمنوا بما أنزلت مصدقا لما معكم. And believe in what I have revealed to you, and then confirm it between yourselves. It's not enough to say, okay, I believe there's a God. I mean, clearly none of this stuff got here by itself. Okay, I believe. I accept that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is Khatam al-Anbiya, he's the final messenger. Okay. But what? Musaddiqan, right? Ma'akum, right? Confirm it. This is the element. I believe amongst ourselves, and this is why some of our kids struggle to really, is this Islam thing really true? Or non-Muslims are looking and like, well, their book is interesting, but I don't see any of it coming about in their community. Because we have just stopped with wa'aminu. Okay, yeah, alhamdulillah, belief is great. We have to have belief. Don't believe, you don't have anything else. But that's like, if you have a 100-yard dash, just because I come out and I beat everybody for the first 20 yards and stop, right? I don't get any medal for that. But in fact, if I do that, everybody else will blow ahead of me and win. So we have to musaddiqan. We have to confirm it, which means that which we believe becomes that which we see around us. It becomes part of the tapestry, part of the furniture, part of the reality. It is felt and seen. Musaddiqan ma'akum. So may Allah Ta'ala make us from amongst those who believe. Allahumma ij'alna min al-mu'mineen. And oh Allah, make us from those who are al-musaddiqeen, those who confirm the truth with their belief in actions. وَالصَّلَوَاتُكَ وَالسَّلَامُكَ عَلَى نَبِيِّكَ الْكَرِيمِ وَعَلَى آلِهِ وَصَحْبِهِ أَجْمَعِينَ وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ.